This conference will now be recorded.
So hi everyone, welcome to the RTD Operations Subcommittee. My name is Day as well. I'm the chair of this committee. I see lots of folks on the call. So for folks that are members of the committee, if you wouldn't mind just typing in for minutes and record your name into the chat box, and then others, if you wouldn't mind including your information as well. As far as the agenda goes, I just want to start out by giving a quick summary. We'll start out by, if folks have any questions regarding the November 4th meeting, we'll open it up for any sort of confirmation, and then we'll transition into the administration of RTD passes, peer transit agency pass programs, and then continue our discussion. So before we jump into the official agenda, I want to check in with committee members to see if you all have any comments regarding the minutes from our last meeting. Okay, here I am. Welcome, Elise. I see you just joined. We're just getting started. So I'm going to go ahead and move us through the agenda since we do have quite a bit that we want to cover and lots of information that we want to get to. And we also want to give folks the opportunity to answer or ask questions. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Teresa and Monica with RTD, who are going to present the RTD pass and discount fare programs. And then Natalie will follow. So Teresa. Are you? Looks like you're there. Teresa, if you want to go ahead and start presenting, that would be great.
And this is Monica. Can everyone see the slides?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good.
Great. And can y'all hear me? Awesome. So I'm Teresa Rinker, Manager of Market Development for RTD. And I will be talking today about our past programs, or better known as our institutional programs. And then Monica will cover some information about all of our discounted fares. Go to the next slide. Are you controlling this, Monica? Thank you. So EcoPass program, this is one of our most popular programs. It's an annual program. It's based on a calendar year. And with that, employees do receive a personalized smart card, and it's good for unlimited rides on buses and our trains. We do have flexible options, so an employer can offer this as a benefit, or they can pass the cost on to their employees, or they can do a cost sharing model. If they choose to pass it on or do like a cost sharing model, they can use pre-tax dollars for this. Currently, we have roughly 750 organizations that participate in our EcoPass program, with a little over 100,000 eligible riders. That fluctuates a little bit year to year. And then we also have 4 master contracts. And what a master contract is, for example, downtown Boulder would be one of our largest, and it's a distinct boundary. And within those boundaries are multiple employers and multiple employees. So for example, the downtown Boulder contract has about 1,200 employers with 6,000 eligible employees. Next slide. So neighborhood EcoPass, these, go back one. There you go. So neighborhood EcoPass, this is for residential communities. Residents also receive the similar personalized card that does allow them to ride unlimited on our trains and our buses. There are currently 60 communities that participate in this program with about 16,000 eligible riders. So this can be an HOA, an apartment complex. There's several neighborhoods up in Boulder that do a lot of grassroots efforts. We work with HOAs, property managers, leasing agents, developers. We do a lot with TOD managers with different cities and government entities. Next slide. CollegePass program. So similar to the other 2 programs, it is also annual, but it's based on the academic school year instead of a calendar year. We have currently 8 colleges that participate in this program with about 100,000 or so eligible students. All of the colleges that are in our program do choose to pass this fee in the form of like tuitions and fees. So every student has access, and typically the students' fees are pretty minimal. It works really well. And they also receive a personalized smart card as well. Next slide. Okay, so these programs are administrative efforts specific to these particular programs. There's a lot of account and card management, and when we say card management, all of these are smart card based. We work with pricing, contracting, managing changes. We do a lot of outreach as well. So outreach could be, just meetings, it could be events. There's a lot of things that we do, a lot of customer service. We work a lot with these individual organizations. We've built a lot of long-term and good relationships with many of our external partners. The contract pricing itself for these programs is based on utilization, full trips taken, the full value of the trips taken. And as you may know, in 2018, we had a PASS program working group, and one of the recommendations that came out of this PASS working group were for us to price these programs based on utilization. It is an insurance model for most of our employers. So when we say pricing buckets, we have a pricing matrix. It's 4 different service levels, and then it's broken out by headcount categories. And then those categories are determined by where the businesses are located and then what their headcounts are. There is some complexity with our current pricing model, and mainly it's due to fluctuation. So each year, the utilization can change. And so one pricing bucket may go up, one might go down. So it's different every year just based on what the utilization is. Next slide. So our nonprofit program. This is open to nonprofits and governmental social services agencies and so on. We have about 200 agencies that participate in this program, and they help a variety of clients. So it can include homeless, low-income seniors, youth. We have a lot of incarcerated individuals that when they are released, they come out and they go to their first checkpoint, and they're offered passes there to help them get around. Excuse me. The agencies can purchase 10 ride ticket books and passes from us, and the majority of them do offer it to their clients for free. Some may offer it at a low cost to their clients. They can purchase tickets, passes. We have the full fare, we have the discounted passes, and for excuse me, for Live, they can buy our 10 ride ticket books. Next slide, please. Bulk mobile ticketing. This is a fairly new feature. It works really well. We use it for conferences, one-time events that come in, and we have also set up a lot of monthly or even annually. So for example, one-time contracts might be a conference or an event that comes in. We've done a lot of work with Visit Denver, Gaylord, and Chambers and whatnot. And so basically if an event comes in, they'll purchase tickets, and then we can bulk push them out to the riders' telephones via our app. We do have monthly contracts as well, and the first one that we worked with was the City and County of Denver, and they have been issuing day passes to youth in Denver. We work with neighborhoods, we have employers. It's very versatile, and the reason being is, for example, let's just say the City and County of Denver pushed out 5,000 day passes and only 4,000 were activated. That's what we're going to invoice them for. So it's a nice, convenient way to issue tickets in bulk to the receiving parties. And again, on our mobile, we have our tickets and our passes available. We have all the full fare senior, all the discounted, and Live, of course, too. Also, this program, the bulk mobile program, is also a very good alternative to EcoPass. For example, if we have a larger employer that doesn't want to include all of their full-time employees, this is a really viable option for them. And it's really nice too, as I mentioned, because we're only going to charge for the tickets that actually get activated each month. Okay, next slide.
Okay, excuse me.
And then
So this is
Monica's turn.
This is Monica, yeah. So Monica Treipi-Harnke, Senior Manager of Revenue. I'm going to go through discounts very quickly because we already talked about them when I presented about the LIVE program. So we have 3 different discount levels, as you have remarked. Youth, seniors, individuals with disabilities have the same discount level as seniors, and that level is federally required in that discount. And then we have our LIVE income-based fare discount program. Here's a link to all the discount fares, more information on our website. And as a reminder for the way we currently work with discounts is that anyone can buy a discounted fare. For example, if I want to buy a youth ticket from my daughter, and the proof of eligibility comes when boarding the bus or when asked by the fare inspector on the train. So that's different than some of the other agencies where it's a proof of at the point of purchase. And so this is where basically proof of eligibility showing that always involves some kind of a picture ID, photo ID, and we'll go through, but they're different ones depending on the type of discount. And so the easiest ones are seniors and youth because they don't require any special IDs, any special enrollment. They can, for example, seniors can show their Medicaid card or a government issued ID showing age. Youth can show a middle or high school ID or government issued ID showing age also if they maybe already have a driver's license or a Colorado ID card. Some prefer to request an RTD issued special discount ID card so they don't have to carry these other forms of ID with them, but that's their preference. And we'll go into that card in a second. So basically here is senior and youth, you don't need to do anything special as a rider. Individuals with disabilities, it depends. A Medicare card is a valid form of proof of eligibility. There's some Medicare programs for individuals under the age of 65 with disabilities. So that's something that can be used. If someone doesn't have it or doesn't want to use it, they can apply for RTD issued special discount card, just a very simple photo ID card with their photo and name and expiration date. And that is available in many ways, usually in person, but also mail, email, and online on our website. Since you were interested in administration, this is administered by RTD, specifically by Teresa's team. And it's basically application assistance for in-person, people come in person or have questions, review the applications, issue those ID cards, and then any customer service that goes with this discount. And then LIVE, which we talked about, is our newest fare discount in 2019. So there's an online application through the state's PEAK website. Help is available. And then the PEAK system makes the determination for most of the applicants if they're already involved in or enrolled in SNAP, Medicaid, or Colorado Works. Now, Denver Human Services is involved in the administration. That's why I underlined them. We have a contract with them, and they review the income information for applicants that are not already enrolled in these programs. They also perform application assistance. You can call them on the phone to apply. We do have some, well, with COVID, we do not have in-person assistance, but that, will be an option again. And then they do any customer service calls for eligibility applications, everything that is really part of their expertise. RTD, also Teresa's group, there's some quality control for the photos to make sure our operators and fair inspectors can recognize the person, and then any customer service that is associated with the discount, the Live ID card, the Live discount card, as we call it. And then we do have a vendor. We have that outsourced that prints and emails and mails in the mail Live discount cards, that photo ID. So those are the kind of groups involved in the administration, where we basically, as you can see, have left, kind of leaving, or we have the experts do it, and we try to just focus on what we do. So with that, any questions for either one of us?
So we'll open it up to questions from members of the committee, and then if others have questions or comments. So Jackie?
So I was curious if you could let us know which of the EcoPass programs have been the most successful from a ridership perspective and a financial perspective as far as revenue back to RTD.
Do you want to answer that, Monica?
Yes. Actually, I just looked at, it's really the EcoPass, which includes neighborhood EcoPass numbers as well. That is about, I want to say 20% of RTD fair revenue total. And that is by far larger. CollegePass is about half. I want to say about 9%, 9-10%. So overall, these two programs or three programs are about 30% of RTD fair revenue, and that's 2019 data because it's the most recent full year.
Thanks, Monica. Dan, do you mind if I just ask a follow-up? I want to make sure I'm understanding it. So of the EcoPass programs, the 750 organizations, the large employers, plus the 4 master contract, plus, or just those 2 alone represent 20% of the revenue?
Correct. Also, that also includes those the neighborhood EcoPass program. Yes,
okay.
yes. Which is much smaller as far as the participation and revenues. But yes, all these together.
And but it's a different price per rider for each of those different categories. Is that correct?
That one I'll have Teresa explain the pricing structure.
Yeah, so the pricing matrix that I had mentioned earlier, that incorporates employers that have anywhere between 1 and 2,999 employees. And then I had mentioned that there are 4 different service levels, and then it's broken out by category. And so that's what we refer to as our pricing buckets in the matrix. Each one of those buckets has a per person annual fee, so they do vary. The large employers that are 3,000 or above are priced on their own utilization. And the neighborhoods are similar, and they are also priced on their own utilization. So what that means, for example, is we would take one neighborhood and we would calculate all of their trips taken by the full fare, and then we would determine their contract price based on that. So, and the master contracts, it just depends on how large they are. Some of them are considered large employers, and some of them are included in the pricing matrix.
Teresa, do you have an estimated cost per rider or revenue per rider from these programs?
I'm not sure if do we break that down, Monica?
I don't have that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Any other questions from members of the committee? Elise?
I was just curious how the payments come in. Is that a monthly payment to RTD, beginning of the month, end of the month? Is it annual?
It varies as well. So with EcoPass, they either prepay it all up front, or we allow them to set up a payment plan, and it can be quarterly or semi-annual. And neighborhoods typically pay all of it up front. Colleges, we typically bill them by semester.
Okay. So, but it's a predictable revenue stream into
Correct.
RTD.
Correct. The majority of the EcoPass employers do pay the whole cost up front.
For the whole year?
Yes, for the whole year.
Oh, so that's
Yeah.
significant benefit.
Yes.
Like ski
So,
passes.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, so I mean, there are a few employers that do opt in for the payment plan, whether it's either semi-annual or quarterly, but the majority of them do pay the whole amount up front.
Got it.
I guess
Thanks.
if I could ask a quick clarifying question, Teresa, when most employers pay up front, what does that mean? Do they typically pay at the beginning of the year? Is it
Yes.
mid-year? What does that
Yeah,
mean?
so for example, we're right in our contract renewal period right now. And so the majority of them will send their contract back along with payment in full, typically by the end of December, and that would be for 2021. And likewise, we continue to sign up employers throughout the year. So in 2021, for example, if they come in mid-year, we do prorate the contracts for half a year. So we continually sign them up starting each month of 2021. So January, February, and so on.
Okay. And do you have a sense of how many have renewed their contract for 2021?
Well, we just started renewals, so we're working through that now. So considering what's going on, you know, with COVID and everything else, and so many people working remote still, we've actually given the employers some different options this year that we don't normally do. So for example, with the insurance model, you know, they have to pay for all of their full-time employees. So what we've said to them is if they're renewing in January, they can go ahead and exclude their remote workers from their headcount. And that seems to be working really well. And then we're telling them as well that we understand so many employers are, you know, having a phased plan where they're going to bring employees back throughout the year of 2021. So they're not suspending any of their passes so that we can allow that process to be a lot easier for them. And in July, we're looking at the possibility, and we could do this where we ask for an adjusted headcount and then we would prorate them based on the increase. And the other thing that we're doing is if they don't want to renew in January, for example, none of them are going back into the office until sometime next year, they can renew at a later date in 2021, and we will go ahead and prorate their contracts for them. So at last count, I believe we had right around 200 that were renewing in January. And there was a small amount that said they weren't going to renew at all, which is typical every year. And then there's another handful, and I'm sorry I don't have those exact numbers with me, that said that they were going to rate till sometime in 2021. So right now we're just doing a lot of customer service and talking to individual employers to figure out what works best for them. So surprisingly, it looks pretty good considering everything going on.
Great, thank you. Let me open it up and see if others have questions. I have a few more, but I just want to make sure. Crystal?
Yeah, thank you. In terms of the administrative costs to have these different passes, is it different costs attributed to different processes, or is the administrative costs the same across the board?
You want me to take that one, Monica?
Yes, let's start with that.
Okay. You know, I would say for administrative costs, obviously each one of these programs has some sort of card associated with it. All of them have personalized cards, including the Live program. You know, so there is a cost associated with the cards themselves. And then, of course, staff time on top of that. I would say it's pretty minimal. You know, and marketing materials if we decide to produce them for our outreach efforts.
So that was, I'm sorry, this is Monica to clarify. So that was for the discounts, right? Or the different pass programs.
Or is that
I want to check in with Crystal. Is it really, are you asking for both the pass programs and the fare structures, Crystal, as far as the administrative costs?
I was actually initially asking for just the pass program, but if there is a difference in administrative costs, I guess for other operations, that'd be good to know too. I mean, I think we've kind of mentioned, you know, the value of having different discount rates. So I'm just trying to, you know, from an internal standpoint, is there a different cost? But if there's a difference in how we calculate costs, other than the past programs, that'd be good to know too.
I'll just quickly talk about the discounts. I would say that the LIFT program is definitely a little bit, there's definitely more involved for administering just because of the income verification, which is a little bit different than I know for the disabled disability discount. It involves more of a, you know, there's different forms of verification. I'll say that first. There's some official forms, or then a form that is signed off by a MD or similar medical professionals. So definitely the income verification and different for LIV with having, you know, working with Denver Human Services and such. It's definitely, I would say, more work and a little and more expensive. However, there's a lot of intangibles involved in the LIV program, and also with working with the human services agencies and other community-based organizations. So, but it's less straightforward, that's for sure.
So I have just two questions before we move on to the next portion of the conversation. So I think one question that I have, I think for you, Teresa, is around the concentration of EcoPasses. Do you have a sense of where most of those are located?
You know, they're throughout our district, but I would say, you know, especially around our major hubs like downtown Denver and Boulder. There's, you know, in the tech center, around our light rail stations. So, you know, I think when employers are looking at EcoPass, they're also looking at availability of transit as well. And it's hard to say, but, you know,
Yeah, and this, so that's for the EcoPass, the neighborhood EcoPass. You're saying those are throughout.
Oh yeah, so the Eco is a little different than the business Eco. So, you know, business Eco is, like I said, throughout our district, and there is a large concentration, like I said, in downtown and whatnot. For NECO, they're heavily concentrated in Boulder, and there's a lot of reasons for that. The city does subsidize it, and they also sign the contracts on behalf of the neighborhoods if it's not an HOA. However, we've been adding more and more outside of Boulder, and we're seeing a lot of new development, especially around our rail stations for apartment complexes. And that's why we're working with all of these TOD managers. And we've signed up probably 5 now. That might not sound like a lot, but to us it is, in the Denver area. And we have a lot of potential and a lot of interest, a lot of new development that's coming on board in 2021 and 2022. We just had somebody reach out to us from Chaffa, for example, to look at all of their properties. So that is our goal, and one of our goals for outreach is to try to grow the NECO program outside of Boulder, because it's, as we know, it's successful up there for various reasons.
Great. And then the other question that I had is around the past programs requiring the identification or the photo. You know, we've heard that at least for the LIV program, that's been a critical issue. And I'm just curious what other past programs require that photo. And then I'll turn it over to Jackie to ask the last question before we move on.
Okay. Well, so Eco, neighborhood, and college all have a photo ID. Special discount, it's either our special discount card or like their government ID or school pass, something of that nature. And then of course LIV with the ID card. So at this point, they all do have some sort of personalization on their cards.
Jackie, last question.
I just want to know if you've identified any kind of a market potential with the EcoPass and the NecoPass. Has RTD gone out and actively talked to businesses about why we've got a lot of large employers in Lone Tree, and for a variety of reasons, not many of them are participating in the program, even though they're walking distance to light rail. What is the untapped potential for ridership for the EcoPass program, just for the rail system alone? Have you identified that?
Yes, we have built a comprehensive outreach plan we'll be embarking on, both digital and hopefully at some point soon we can also do in person. We also have a lot of external partners that we work with, all of our TMOs, for example. We want to become even more engaged with TMOs and attend their meetings with their stakeholders. And, you know, we're going to start targeting specific lines. For example, we'll do a campaign around the N line. So we're looking at businesses and community residential around our light rail stations. And we'll be doing some digital campaigns here coming soon. And then we're going to replicate that throughout our district. So, and not just rail lines, but, you know, for example, Colfax, that's a highly traveled corridor with a lot of potential. So we are definitely looking at all of these and how we think and how we do our outreach.
So is it fair to say that hasn't been done to date?
It has, but
Okay.
we do a lot of outreach and we do a lot of conversations with a lot of different community partners out there. As you can see, my department has a wide variety of customer base. It's very diverse. We have a new supervisor in my department as well, and her and I have had a lot of discussions about goals and what we want to do. You know, Jyotsna.
Yeah,
Yes.
and it was not meant at all as a criticism of history. It's
Right.
just, I'm just trying to identify, is there some untapped potential that we could be doing things a little differently, being more strategic
Yes.
and entrepreneurial to take advantage of? And I love the idea of the outreach that you're doing as the N line opened, and I think that's very, very smart and headed in the right direction. But I'm looking at it as an opportunity to increase ridership, and it sounds like there is something there.
Yes. Those are things that we're looking at, and not just EcoPass, but we're also going to be promoting our bulk mobile option as well, because a lot of people like that. We have a lot of school districts that are waiting to come back online and not be remote. They've all expressed interest in participating in our bulk mobile program. So we're going to be out there promoting and talking to people about all of the options available, EcoPass just being one of them. And that includes our discount fares. If they're for some reason not interested in any of our past programs, well, maybe their employees are qualified for Live or one of our other discounts.
And this is Monica. I would like to add just something about the photo question that I just thought of, because for Live especially, it is definitely a pain point. But in general, for card administration, as you can imagine, for any personalized cards. And so we're hoping we are modernizing fare collection over the next few years. The board just approved a contract authority yesterday. And so we are really thinking hard, how can we solve this basically? And, you know, as we all know, once we get into the actual requirements, it's going to be more complicated than just saying it. But that's definitely a goal of ours to, you know, maybe hopefully get away from the photo, hopefully have a better process that is, you know, just helping all of us out, the customers as well as us, for administration.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, thank you, Monica and Teresa, for sharing this. Just to remind the committee, this was certainly something where we ended our last conversation and just wanting to get a better sense of what the existing past programs and fare structures are as we think about creating a fair, F-A-I-R, fare structure. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Natalie, who is going to present on peer transit agency programs.
Hi, everybody. Let me get my screen up. Oh, you can't see my screen yet, can you?
No, we can't.
Okay.
There we go.
Great. All right, so I'm just going to go over quickly a very high level overview of some of the passes that some of the RTD peer agencies offer. Are
Really
you
quick,
all seeing my screen?
I was going to jump in, Natalie, if you wouldn't mind just expanding the screen right now. You're still in just standard presentation, like not presentation view.
Yeah, I have to adjust my settings maybe. Well, like it's not going for me. Let's see.
Natalie, do you want me to just pull it from the agenda and share my screen?
It
I
is
think
showing.
is it showing now?
Yes, you got it, Natalie.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
that is okay.
Great.
There you go.
Okay, cool. There we go. So again, this is just going to be a pretty high level overview. If you are curious to know more, there's a whole list of links in the agenda packet that was sent out. So the agencies that I looked at were selected from the peer agencies that I identified for RTD plus Houston. Houston was recommended to be looked at as well. So the peer agencies, they weren't chosen based on best practices or anything. They were based on essentially similarities in geographic and demographic characteristics to RTD. So a lot of these agencies have a similar geographic region or density or population. So that's just to note, these aren't necessarily the best practices. I didn't really look into the efficiency of these passes or anything like that. It's just kind of what's out there. So the Houston Metro has the Metro Q Fare Card. It's a reloadable card, online portal, and you can charge and view your balance online, and you get 5 free trips for every 50. And they have zoned fares, so the pricing varies per trip based on where you are in the city and where you're trying to go. Other options, they have mobile ticketing that you can use through the app. And they also have a Metro Day Pass, which is more efficient if you are using transit more than twice per day. And they also have Metro Money, which is a prepaid card. Dallas has the GoPass tap card and app. So there's a whole variety of different fares and pass options that you can load onto the card or the app. And monthly passes cost $96 for a local pass and $192 for a regional pass. They also have an option for an annual pass, which is $960 for a local pass. There's also a regional option for that too. And they also have a variety of programs for groups, whether it's businesses or schools or convention groups that come into the area, things like that. Okay, so Atlanta, Marta has the Breeze card, and once again, you can load multi-day, multi-trip, or monthly passes onto the card. Uh-oh. Yes, yep, still see my screen. Okay.
You're still here. Yep.
Okay. And then you can also get a certain amount of trips loaded onto the card. There's also a streetcar day pass option as well. King County in Seattle, they have the one regional card for all, the ORCA card. And this is kind of unique because in the Puget Sound region, they have multiple different transit agencies. So the ORCA card transfers to all these different agencies. And so that's kind of unique to that area, not necessarily as applicable to the Denver Front Range region. But they also have specific fares, ORCA fares for adult, youth, low income, senior, and disability groups. And they also do have mobile ticketing and single ticketing options. Then lastly, we have Massachusetts Bay. In the Boston region, they have the Charlie card, which can be loaded with cash or passes to pay fares. They have a couple different options, Link Pass, because they also have a subway system. Monthly local bus pass is cheaper, and then they also have commuter rail passes with zone fares, once again, because of the difference in distances. And they also have the Charlie ticket and mobile and cash options. All right, and that is all I have.
Great. Thank you for that research, Natalie. Just want to open it up for questions from the committee. If there's any points of clarification or additional details that you'd like to see.
Okay, it's me again.
Jackie.
Is there, I appreciate you gave us kind of the breadth of what's out there. Do you have any information, or can we get information on kind of best practices associated with this?
Yeah, I don't have any information. I really just looked at the agencies that are kind of have the same sort of services and modes and have a similar geographic area and demographic area to RTD. That's why they were selected. I could definitely do some looking into best practices or most efficient passes or what is out there in the industry.
I think it would probably be worth exploring that. Up to the committee, but that would be a thought I would have.
Crystal and then Elise.
Yeah, just to add to that, if we're going to get best practices, I think having a sense of what kind of critical mass we need in order to accomplish, like what it would be the ideal scenario from like a development standpoint, density, et cetera, in order to be able to get to a certain type of system. I would imagine that there's probably a guaranteed density in some of these other areas. I did some research, not on any of the ones that you mentioned, but they were a lot of the larger cities. So what's that threshold in order to be able to get there?
Elise. Oh, you're on mute, Elise.
Of course I am. I was going to say that I agree with it would be helpful to get best practices, and I guess defining what makes it best. I'm curious on where the greatest increases in ridership, and maybe there's equity metrics as well, which past programs, which fares get us the best results in those regards. So I just include that as you figure out what's best. And I don't know if the various agencies quantify what the increase in ridership is for, in exchange for having a pass. I think I've seen it anywhere from 6 to 9 times more likely to ride transit if you have a pass in the RTD area. But I would love to get that kind of information if it's available.
The other thing I just want to offer is that once we, and this kind of moves us a little bit into the next portion of the conversation, but I think as a committee, really just clarifying like what is the intent of these past programs, and then we could also not only work with Natalie but potentially the consultants to get a little bit more in detail analysis on what a potential recommendation could look like, recognizing the criteria that we've laid out. Before we move into the other part of the conversation, I just want to do a quick check to see if anyone else has any questions or additional information that we might want Natalie to do a little bit of legwork on for us. Lynn?
I just have a couple of thoughts, and one of them you would know better than I do, Dea, because I think you were on the PASS program working group, but there was a ton of consultant work done there that may be helpful. And then if there's anybody that has best practices, it's probably the APTA, the American Public Transit Association, and of which RTD is a member. So those would be places to start. And Teresa or Barbara or someone may be able to help with that when you get to that point in terms of pointing the right direction.
Great, thank you, Lynn. So I'll go ahead and move us into the next portion, and I just also want to be mindful of the time. So what I'd like to do is at least spend a little bit of our remaining time together, focusing on the pre-work that I had shared with you all. I want to acknowledge it was a little bit late, so I know many folks may not have gotten around to it. So really what I was hoping we could do is start to hone in what a potential recommendation might look like in terms of what we want Natalie and or the consultant to start diving a little bit further into. The questions that I asked of the committee really focused on, based on what you know about the existing RTD pass and fare structures, based on this information now that Natalie has shared with us around peer structures, what could be refined, added, or removed just based on kind of a quick gut check, because the goal is not to get to an ideal state, but at least give us some guardrails to start operating from. The other question that I had, and I think this gets a little bit to the question that Crystal, you had started to go down, but what's really the ideal, what is our ideal fare pass structure trying to accomplish in the long term? I've heard a couple of things, even in this conversation, around increasing ridership, potentially affordability, and just ease of customer, what I'm just going to call customer utilization, so that it allows folks to easily engage with the system. But I want to check in with you all on those two questions so that we can start to put some bumper lanes, if you will, on how we want to proceed. So we'll open it up to a little bit more of a discussion as folks have thoughts on those two questions.
I'm sorry, what was the first question?
Yeah, the first question is around, are there specific RTD media that could be refined, added, or removed based on what we now know from Teresa and Monica's presentation?
Well, I will say we have great staff at Boulder County, and Alex Hydright, who I think is on the phone, and Angel Bond, who I'm not sure if she is, put together a very detailed list of suggested recommended changes to make the fare and the pass programs work better. And I'm happy to forward that to you if they haven't already. But you know, around the fares, for example, there was the suggestion that we consolidate all of the discounts into a single 50% discount, which I think it has to be 50% because that's required for seniors. And just for ease of use, and that you might, because that takes a hit on the youth side, you might want to actually increase the age of free fares, you know, to include middle schoolers or something like that, to sort of make up for the fact that right now youth have a 70% discount. I think a lot of the recommendations for improvement around the PASS program is use of mobile ticketing and all of the innovations that could come from that. Both allowing different entities to contribute to subsidize if desired, and also to just make the user interface better. So I'm happy to forward these recommendations, giving credit where credit's due to you or whoever. And with regards to goals, I think you hit 3, and I think they're related. In terms of increasing ridership, will be that goal will be achieved better if transit is affordable and it's easy to use, and the passes and fares are understandable. So I think there's probably nuances with the ridership. Increased total ridership, all transit use is good, And we may, in particular, care about transit-reliant populations even more. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Elise. I think it would be great to see that recommendation. I know Angel very well, but I don't think I've seen that one just yet. So, Crystal, I see that you unmuted yourself. Do you have something to add?
I do. So I think part of your pre-work questions or line of questions was around who our target audience is, and really understanding what value out of a transit agency. And maybe there, I would have to imagine that there's some basic ones like reliability that weigh pretty heavily. Just do a Google search on like best and worst transit agencies. I would, we can talk about whether or not the website is the greatest website or not, but Vox highlighted that Denver is actually an example of what's RTD is an example of what's not done well. And I would imagine that they align their studies based on kind of like what consumers are interested in or their readership. So it's good, it was just good to just kind of get like a gut check of what's out there. That's some unearned media that we don't want. So there could be some consideration there, but more so aligning the way we're defining success with how our target audiences define success. And in another study, they were talking in how they ranked different metro agencies was jobs accessible within a certain, minute trip. I think it was 30-minute trip. How many routes are within a certain half mile, and what percentage of commuters that use transit. And again, the inspiration there is just understanding how we're defining success, and how our target audience / writers are defining what they need out of a transit agency.
Okay, thank you. Kristen, you are on mute.
Actually, Elise said what my thoughts were, which is simplify the fare levels. And I do agree that because youth has 70%, we're going to have to do a little bit of a kick in for them. I've been to several board meetings where, sixth graders come up to the podium and say, I have to choose between riding the bus or buying lunch. And sometimes I have to stay home because I can't afford to be on the bus. So I agree with the 70% youth fare, 70% discount. But what does that 10% difference make for, and you were part of the PASS program working group, Dea, so I'm sure there were quite a few probably warm, not heated, but warm discussions about the LIVE program. But why not throw it in and just make it 50% flat? I think that would really help ridership, which is going to be, as we are coming out of COVID, that is going to be a huge thing for RTD, is increasing ridership.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Kristen. A couple of things that I want to just reflect on, and then Jackie, please jump in. This may be helpful in terms of next steps, but it sounds like, Crystal, you did a great job of outlining at least a few potential key metrics that we want to look at, especially in terms of our peer agencies. And maybe, I don't know that we could make a firm assumption that because of this structure, so the number of jobs, for example, accessible within a certain number of minutes of a trip, how many are within a half mile, percentage of commuters within within a transit stops distance. If we can firmly make an assumption that this is correlated to the increase in ridership, but I think that starts to give us, or to the fare structure, but it starts to give us something to at least start to respond to when we look at peer agencies. So I think connecting some of the KPIs to fare structures, I think this will be a little bit of post work if folks wouldn't, maybe if we can start to do a little bit of an email exchange and figure out, well, what is it exactly that we're looking at? I'll put together something that I think makes sense. and throw that out to the group for your analysis and see if this is really kind of the direction we want to go. And then we can start to hone in on the peer cities. The other thing that I want to lift up is the work of the past program working group, because there was some of that already done. So I wouldn't want to completely replicate that work because we're under very different conditions nowadays, but to what extent can we take some of that work and make it replicable or relatable to where we are today at this point in time. So Jackie, I think you had a comment or question.
Yeah, I really want to support everything that has been said. And I also just want to kind of shine a little light on the EcoPass program too, because I think it is ridiculously complicated. And while we talked about the FAIR programs and simplifying those, and I completely agree with all the recommendations that have been suggested, I also think we need to take a look at that EcoPass program and the simplification of that. And one of the things that struck me and was mentioned by somebody, and I apologize that I don't know who said it, was kind of making it like a ski pass. And in the sense of, and maybe there's a price if you, yeah, I really think there is something there. And it's something that dawned on me as well. And I feel like, I don't know if it's a geographic area that you can just buy into an EcoPass for this dollar amount. And I don't know if geographic area is the right way to go there, but instead of depending on your employer or relying on your employer to be, I like the neighborhood program option and make it maybe geographically based. Not sure that's the right way to go, but really love to have somebody explore, all of us explore that. Thanks.
I am kind of curious, and Ron, I see that your hand is up. I am curious if, and anyone from RTD can jump in, if there's been a conversation about kind of swapping to where the EcoPass, like the EcoPass is maybe a little bit more broadly used. Has there been any sort of analysis on expanding the neighborhood EcoPass program? I mean, I know we heard it kind of in today's conversation, but I don't know if anyone's done a little bit more work on that.
This is Allison Crump with City of Boulder. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to jump in, but
yes, jump in, Allison.
Sorry, I actually manage the Neighborhood EcoPass program for the City of Boulder, and we have over 8,000 eligible residents. So I'm happy to chat offline and discuss expansion because we've been expanding for the past 2 decades with the program. So I'm happy to talk about kind of scaling that.
Great, thank you so much, Allison, for that offer. Ron, you had your hand up.
Just wanted to, from an equity standpoint, say that one of the trends in transit fares is fare capping rather than monthly passes. It can be difficult for a lower income person to save up enough money, have enough money to buy a monthly pass up front. They're expensive, right? And so they end up paying more because they have to resort to just paying per trip. So you're advantaging people that can afford to buy a monthly pass and disadvantaging those that can't. So fare capping is a trend among some transit agencies where, you know, with a smart card or a smartphone app that tracks, it can track how many fares you've paid, how many trips you've made on transit, and caps for that month or some time period. And then after you've reached that cap, then every ride after that is free. So I just wanted to throw that out there for the group.
So on the topic of fare capping, I just plugged in to the chat box a report, or a one-pager, I should say, that was done for the past program working group on fare capping. I remember that was a very warm conversation around the fare structure that we have today. So I just wanted to make sure that folks were aware of that. We are at time, and so I just want to do a quick check if folks have any additional last-minute items that for any questions that you weren't able to jump in during the conversation that we may want to bring up now before we move into quick next steps. All right, hearing none. So I will go ahead and move forward. I will follow up with Matthew and with Natalie in terms of what our immediate next steps are, but it sounds like we're landing on at least a couple of potential opportunities that we want to explore. One potential structure is very simplified zones, simplified fare and pass structures. The other one is looking at maybe some more of the KPIs from our peer agencies to see how we may be able to model a fare structure and pass structure similar to theirs. I am available if folks have any additional questions. I will follow up with folks on this committee in terms of the KPIs that at least I heard during this call. But if there's anything else, please feel free and reach out. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.